This module discusses some of the different data types we can use for variables. There's many different types depending on what type of data you want to store, what the value is that you want to store. The main types that we're going to look at are byte, int, double, boolean, and string. The first few types are known as primitive types, so types of values that variables can hold are integers, which are positive and negative numbers with no decimal values, floating point, which are the double type, which is positive and negative numbers that have decimals, boolean, which contains the value true or false, and there are other similar types to these that are listed in this table here. This website gives a nice overview of the type of variables that we can have. So we talked about using byte, which is a very small variable type that we can use in memory that only has the values from -128 to 127. So if we're using small numbers, we can use this type of variable. When we're using other integers, for now we'll use int, which can be very, very large integer values in between this range here, but does use more memory for its usage for storing the value. For floating point, we are going to stick with double, but you can also use the type float. Double is a larger size in memory, but also uses a much larger range of values. And then boolean, which can be either true or false. When choosing a data type, it's important to choose the most appropriate types for the quantity being represented. So if a value could possibly have a decimal portion, then double is the best choice. If a variable will represent only whole numbers, int is going to be the best choice, even though double will work. The last type, string, is actually what's known as an object data type. So an object is something that is made up of information, which we know as the attributes, and can perform actions, which are its behaviors. So for example, a human is an object. Each person is a single instance of that general human design. But we differ in our attributes, our eye color, our skin tone, our height, our gender, etc. But we all perform the same basic actions, such as eat, sleep, and poop. Now, strings are an object data type comprised of a set of characters and therefore cannot be represented by a primitive data type. Declaring strings is very much the same as declaring the primitive data types, whereas we're using the type and then the identifier. It's the same for strings, except in this case, use capital S for string and then the identifier after that. So maybe something like username and then end with a semicolon. The next video will take a much more in-depth look into the use of variables, assigning values, and how they're used throughout your programs.